pleasant good morning, everybody. Good to be with you here on NoFilter.net Caffeine TV. It's the morning briefing. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie, Lubitz on a degenerate Friday edition of the program. Although could also be known, maybe we should be blowing some taps for the picks that we've given out so far here on the show. We didn't do too badly yesterday. I think we gave you 2 plays and split. But both of us, Lubie, and I'll never forget that Clemson is part of the Deep South. I don't know how much that has changed over the years. My experience there, where I identified this as a destination that I didn't necessarily feel comfortable with, happened about 30 years ago. It might have even been longer than that. It might be like 31, 32 years ago. I happened to be on the team bus of the University of Miami basketball team as they were heading into town, getting set to play at the Little John Coliseum against the Clemson Tigers. At the time, the University of Miami was in the Big East, so this was an interconference clash, and it was a game that was featured annually. I made 2 trips there, but on the first one, it was a real eye-opener for me because the team bus seems to get lost on the way back from the hotel. Leonard Hamilton was the coach of the team at the time, and he was looking for some place to stop to get something for the team to eat after the long day of travel. There had been some delays. They were flying commercial airlines. These were not chartered flights. And sure enough, we're in some wooded area in South Carolina. Hadn't seen any sign of civilization for several miles. And in the clear, suddenly pops up a diner. And Leonard says to the bus driver, "Hey, can we stop there and see if they have something that the team can get to eat?" We roll into this diner, and there are 2 guys that look like they were rejected extras from the movie Deliverance, talking about the hillbilly guys. And they're having a contest of seeing who can shoot the longest gob of spit into a spittoon that was about 20 feet away. They don't even look up. Here's a distinguished-looking guy, Leonard Hamilton, always immaculately dressed and comports himself as a real gentleman. He does have a presence that makes you think like this is somebody who could be very important. They never even look up for about 20 minutes as Leonard's standing there. Well, it wasn't quite that long, but it seemed like an eternity. And finally, Leonard says to them, "Excuse me, do you guys know where we can get some soul food?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, Leonard, I don't know if that was a really good question there, but all of a sudden, a bunch of guys with sheets on their head popped out. And the next thing you know, we were out of that restaurant and on our way back to the hotel. It didn't matter if we ate or not. It was an eye-opener of sorts because the crowd wasn't much different. The composition and the demographic of the crowd at Little John Coliseum the next night wasn't much different from what we saw in that particular diner. And I'm thinking, this is no place that I really want to hang out. So I've always had somewhat of a bias against Clemson. I don't know about you, Lubie. When you see Clemson, are we sick of the sanctimonious Dabo Swinney?
Yes.
He was a really good coach. I don't think anybody could argue that. Dabo Swinney, would you say that he's a really good coach? Is that a fair statement? If you had a team and you wanted to hire a coach and you extricated yourself from all of the personality things or the approach or whatever, and you just wanted a guy that was an X's and O's guy and a good recruiter, what would you say? Would you go ahead and hire Dabo Swinney to coach your college football team?
I mean, the last 2-3 years he's sort of fallen off. So I don't know where he stands today. He was a really good coach. He took Clemson to places I guess they had won a title before, but they were never a prominent, title contender every year. And for about 4 or 5 years, it was them in Alabama. I mean, before Georgia took a foothold, it was Clemson and Alabama. The last 2-3 years, they've fallen off a little bit, but no, I mean, he's a good coach. I just can't stand him. I think he's a fucking he's full of shit. I mean, he's God loving and all that crap, but he's one of the guys that stood at not paying the kids, and then he didn't do the transfer portal. Like, I just think he's a sort of a jerk off. Like,
he's a little smarmy, or so it seems.
Problem with Dabo, yeah, he's a good coach.
I had an interview with Dabo Swinney. Clemson was going to play the Hurricanes in football, and we always used to get an interview with the opposing coach. Believe it or not, Lubie, they would actually call radio stations in town and say, "Hey, would you like to have so and so on?" And in this case, it was Dabo Swinney, and he was in his first year as the head coach of Clemson.
Oh, wow.
So I did the interview with, and they're usually going to be very favorable, right? I mean, this is something that's going to go in a pregame show or whatever. I mean, you're not going to, I didn't know anything about him really. And I remember at the end of that interview thinking, my God, that guy's great.
Oh,
Who
wow.
wouldn't want to play for him?
Mm.
And then over the years, we saw some of this stuff that seemed to reek of not necessarily being believable, a bit of a phony. It was kind of like watching the Ohtani press conference, which, by the way, I don't know, did they mention anything about betting during the Dodger game yesterday? I didn't get a chance to see much of it. I saw some highlights. Ohtani went 2 for 3. But you would have thought that Dabo Sweeney was the greatest guy in the world if you had caught this interview. And you know how it is when you're interviewing guys that you don't know too much about, but they have a presence in the sporting world. And maybe it's a name that you had heard of or somebody that's popped on the scene that seems to be a hot commodity, Lubie. And sometimes you think, oh, wow, that guy was really refreshing. It was absolutely fantastic. I think he's going to do very well, be very successful. We had that feeling about Dusty May when we talked to him. We had that feeling about Jim Larinaga when he came to the University of Miami. And you're thinking, all right, this guy is really going to do well. So I thought he was going to be successful, Dabo Sweeney. But nonetheless, there was sort of a bitter taste that I had anytime I thought about the Clemson Tigers, just because of my experience there with the basketball team and that adventure into the Little John Coliseum, which was kind of like, do you remember the movie Fort Apache, the Bronx? I mean, it was as dangerous as treading into that kind of turf, at least for a guy like me, especially somebody that was traveling with a bunch of black guys through the Deep South. It was pure ugliness. But Clemson, I mean, we've been having them out in every round.
Yes.
And last night, what do? We saw 2 number 1 seeds go down, Lubie, go down in a ball of flames as Arizona gets knocked out of the tournament by Clemson. And they were Kaputski from the start. They took a brief lead. I think they led for like 20 seconds in the ball game. They came back in the second half, about midway through the second half. They take a 1-point lead. And then Clemson managed to make all of the clutch plays through the last 10 minutes of the ball game. They end up winning at 77-72. That has to be, would you say, I mean, outside of the opening round of games, which you're usually able to overcome, even if you've been annihilated by a couple of big upsets, and there were several in the first round of the tournament, especially on the Thursday opener. But usually you're able to survive that if you're in some kind of bracket competition, because those games are routinely worth, 1 point in the overall standings when you're trying to figure out who had the best session in the NCAA tournament. But Clemson has to be ruining a lot of people. Do you think many people had Clemson going to the Elite Eight, Lubie? I didn't even think they belonged in the tournament. We were talking about that yesterday when we buried everybody by saying, yeah, go against them. I didn't know about the 7 points. That I would have been a little reluctant about, because those were the kind of games that set up where every expert says, go ahead and lay the 7. We discussed that a little bit yesterday here on the show, where I'm looking at CBS Sportsline. They had 6 guys that they paneled about the 4 games last night. All 6 said lay 7 or 7 and a hook with Arizona last night. They thought Arizona was going to dominate this ball game. So you couldn't have been any more. And the theme of this tournament, it seems like you could say this every year, Lubie, is I was dead wrong. And so we were way off on that one. But Clemson moves on. Kind of a surprise, because as our good friend and professor told us, great basketball handicapper, Clemson is the ugliest team that he has ever seen. And he didn't mean that in the way that they play basketball, or it's not like they have like 5 Grayson Allens out there on the floor every time. Grayson Allen, not a bad looking guy physically, but an absolute asshole when he was playing ball in college for Duke. But he said they have the ugliest team because they're just physically ugly, Lubie. They do look a little bit weird, don't they? Bunch of white guys out there, strange looking faces. Some of them look like they've been in college for 20 years. Pretty incredible. So that was a big upset last night. University of Connecticut. Wow. I mean, who's going to stop them? Are we deluding ourselves into thinking that nobody can beat the University of Connecticut? They have now won all of their tournament games over the last year when they won the championship. And the 3 games they played so far this year, they've won all of them by double digits or more. 10-plus points. Unbelievable. And they do it again last night. They annihilate San Diego State, a rematch of last year's championship game. Didn't look like much of a rematch.
Nope.
My good friend Bert Sugar, may he rest in peace. So one of the greats, one of the brilliant people ever to pick up a pen and write about sports. Of course, a big-time boxing expert. You guys remember Bert Sugar. If you're not familiar with him, you've certainly seen an image of him. If you've watched anything about boxing and boxing history, he was the guy with the fedora and the big cigar, and he always had something really clever to say. My favorite Bert Sugar quote of all time, of course, and I try to abide by this in conducting my life and my daily business, Lubie, and I think you become a little bit of, which is, it's better to be a good liver than have a good liver.
There you go.
Great line, right? I mean, think about that. You're going to give up alcohol and all of the illicit drug use that you've been involved in your entire life? No, fuck no. Because it's better to be a good liver than to have a good liver. Now, that was Bert Sugar. But, wow, I mean, he would, have gladly pointed out that you definitely can't have any kind of assuredness when it comes to betting this basketball tournament, especially when you see later on Alabama beats North Carolina, so another number one seed perished in the process. And then you had two other games of some interest. Illinois and Iowa State, 1.5-point spread. That turned out to be a barn burner. Illinois wins it, offense over defense, 72-69. And in the Bama game, of course, 89-87 over North Carolina. People were complaining about Hubert Davis. Do you think Hubert Davis deserves to be the source of criticism? It seemed like North Carolina played a pretty good season, although it's over right now.
Well, I didn't watch the second half of that game, so I don't know how it finished. I passed out. It was like fucking 12 o'clock at night. It feels like they underwhelmed. Like this year, look, they ended up being a number one seed and they found themselves in the Sweet 16, but they struggled a lot during the regular season. And then I don't know what last night was. Bama's a good team, but that game and the Arizona game confused the crap out of me. Like Arizona really struggled in this tournament in a way that it didn't make any sense. And Carolina should have rocked Alabama. Like it's weird to see upsets like that still happening this late in the turn. Like usually, because I really wanted to see Carolina, Arizona, and it's annoying that we're now not like I don't know. To see upsets in the like these teams in the Elite Eight is really fucking annoying. Like I'm actually frustrated.
I love when number one seeds get eliminated. I really do, because for some reason the sort of pretentious attitude that the committee is infallible. I love seeing that shattered. That whole image. And what we had it last night, Sweet 16, you had to win 2 games to get to that point. Usually cupcake setup games for the number one seeds. And here we go. We're down to 2 number one seeds left in the tournament. UConn, which looks like it's going to steamroll its way to the championship. And Houston is still left in it, at least until tonight when we have 4 more games on tap.
Yes.
So I don't know how you feel about the games that are set up for tonight, Lubie. Is there anything that stands out to you? Is there any way that we can recoup some of the money that we've been helping people lose throughout the course of the tournament here so far? Because we haven't been exactly razor sharp, Lubie.
No. I feel like it's weird because I feel like Purdue sort of learned from their lesson of last year. They've been pretty strong through their 2 games, but after I'm really gun shy after last night. I was really confident in Arizona, and I don't know if they ever led. Like they were down literally that entire game, and they were down pretty convincingly the entire game. Gonzaga's always there. I don't know, the Purdue and Edie, they've learned. It feels like where last year they sort of screwed around on that in their one game. They've been getting him the ball a lot and no one has an answer for him. And now, to me, that's the way you just keep going. And so to me, Purdue is a game I feel pretty confident about over Gonzaga. And it's only 5 and a hook right now. We'll see where it goes. Marquette and NC State, I have no idea. NC State should not be there. But Marquette struggled throughout the tournament. So I don't know what the hell to do with that. I mean, your guy Burns Jr., no one really seems to have an answer for him in this day and age. And I don't think Marquette's any different. Duke, Houston's legit. I mean, Houston's a team that was right there with UConn where people really felt they had a chance to be in that final game, but they've struggled. And Duke, it's fucking Duke.
We just root against Duke, let's face it. You want them to lose. I want them to lose. I want Christian Laettner to be there, tossing out the ceremonial jump ball. And I want him to even, I don't wish evil on anybody, but anything about Duke. I just want to see them in the losers bracket there. It does seem like Shire is a good coach and seems like a really good guy. Filipowski might be better than a lot of people have anticipated. He certainly evolved over the last couple of years as a player. On the collegiate level, he was good when he got into the game and seems to be a dominant force right now. But going to root against him with all of my heart. I'll be zeroed in on the women's NIT anyway. Come on, let's face it. Where's it really at? It's all about Caitlin Clark this year. And now she's been offered, $5 million to play. Is it Ice Cube or Ice T? Which is the guy that does the Car Shield commercial? Because it's the other guy. That's Ice. That's Ice T does the Car Shield commercial.
The NCIS or one of the the crime TV shows.
Yeah.
Ice Cube is the one that did all the family movies. And then also did Friday back in the day.
But who's the guy with the 3-on-3 league? Is that T or Cube?
Ice Cube.
Which Ice is it? Oh, that's Cube. Okay.
Ice Cube has the big 3. Yes, that's his.
All right, the big 3, whatever. And that's kind of an interesting thing. And Caitlin Clark is offered $5 million to play there. I would imagine that's not enough money to lure her into making that kind of a transition. The other guy is unbelievable, right? You talk about lack of credibility. Who is insuring a warehouse full of Rolls Royces with Car Shield?
Yeah.
you imagine you wheel that thing into some greasy mechanic that actually is going to accept the payment from CarShield, and you say, I think I need a new transmission in this thing. Get the fuck out of here, Ice-T. Who are you kidding with that? Him and Chris Berman. I mean, you imagine Chris Berman? He gets on the phone there with his CarShield accountant. Can I do this? You think they can give me any kind of a new adapter there? It's like, no, we're not paying for that, Chris. You got to be kidding me. But anyway, a lot of interesting action on the college basketball circuit last night. Of course, opening day, Major League Baseball. You had Juan Soto gun down a runner at the plate for the Yankees. The Yankee fans were already penciling in their trips for the World Series after coming back and winning. They were down 4-0 against the Houston Astros. It came back, one away in the ninth inning. I think it was runners on first and second. Guy lines a single to right field. Looks like it's going to tie up the game. Soto, as if he was Roberto Clemente, fires to the plate. One hopper. They nail the guy by a whisker and preserve the Yankees 5-4 comeback victory on opening day. So they're euphoric in New York. The Mets open up today after having their game postponed by rain yesterday, or at least the threat of rain. I don't know if it even rained, but nonetheless, I think it did. I think they had some sloppy conditions. The only way I know anything about the National Weather Scope is by looking at track conditions at various racetracks, and I think it was sloppy yesterday at Aqueduct. That's all you really want to know. How come the weather person never tells you whether the races are on the turf or not? Wouldn't that be a key piece of information? We go, here's what it's going to be in Pembroke Pines. It's going to be like this over in Cooper City. And they're off the turf at Gulfstream Park. I think that should be required information for anybody that's starting out their day if they really wanted to feed you what you need to get involved in your own daily existence. And a bunch of other stuff happening all around the sporting world. Scotty Scheffler, by the way, sets a record yesterday. We were talking about the just constant, incessant blowjob of Scotty Scheffler by the golf announcers now. I believe it's well-deserved. The guy has shot 28 straight rounds under par on the PGA Tour while in competition. Do you think it's been thinned out? I mean, too much? Is that why not many people are paying, or not as many people are paying attention to something like this as they would if, say, I mean, if Tiger Woods is doing this, are you kidding me? It's the headline on every major news network. But Scotty Scheffler playing some amazing golf. He's won back-to-back tournaments, and he's doing it again, right? Where he has 20, I think it's 28 straight rounds under par on the PGA Tour. He's shot like in the 70s only 6 times so far in the last, since 2024 got underway. In the 70s, that's low 70s. That's 70 or 71. Still not touching par and never anything over par. Guys become... I think it deserves to be. I don't know if he'll be there because you had Rahm defect and all these other guys. Does Dustin Johnson even matter anymore as a golfer? And all these guys disappeared. You hear anything about Brooks Koepka? Where the hell is he? The last time we saw him, he was snorting cocaine in the skybox as the Panthers, Florida Panthers, were in a playoff game last year, and he had just finished up a round in Florida. Brooks Koepka. All of these guys, they just disappear from the planet, don't they? Yeah, kind of crazy. Anybody on a live tour? When is the next live tour event? And do we know where it is? And then the big question we keep asking on this show, and I wish somebody would assist us in answering it: where the fuck is Greg Norman? Did he go into that same place that Khashoggi did when they said, "Hey, why don't you come down and meet with us at the embassy?" I don't know. These are no people to mess with. Never mind going to Clemson and asking if there's a place around that you can get some soul food. What a good question that was, Leonard. Way to go, my man. But anyway, Clemson messing up everybody's brackets, and I hope you guys had a good time watching these games last night. Certainly have been tough to peg, Lubie. I don't know that you can really kill yourself or beat yourself up if you're doing lousy in terms of results, especially in brackets in the NCAA tournament. All right, we have to run. You guys have a great Friday. We got baseball again today. That's going to be a lot of fun. Basketball, 4 more games in the Sweet 16 taking place. Women's NIT, all kinds of exciting stuff. The golf tour is playing somewhere. And we're off to have a good time. We'll be heading to a racetrack later today. The Florida Derby will be contested on Saturday here in our hometown of Miami. And could be interesting, right? I mean, is this the key stepping stone to the Kentucky Derby, Lubie? Or is there a mystery horse floating around out there somewhere that we can cash a 50-1 ticket on? I don't know. We'll find out a little bit more. That scene will solidify itself a little bit more when they hit the gate around 6 o'clock tomorrow at Gulfstream Park. All right, we have to run. Thanks so much for being with us. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, we had a great week being with you. I hope you guys will join us again on Monday for the next edition of the Morning Briefing.